Hello, in this video we'll look at the content page of Unit 2, Activity 4. And in this activity we're going to focus on films. So far in Unit 2 we have looked at how stories are told through comic strips and how stories are told through short stories. Now we'll look at how a story is told in a film. And to start with, I'd like you to think about some of your favorite films and think about what makes them great. What makes you want to watch a film over and over again? And there's a little video here that's going to have some famous actors and directors talking about what they think makes a movie great. And I think that's just going to get us thinking and maybe kind of get us in the mood to take a look at film in a little bit more detail. And so as we move on to the action section, we're going to focus on specific film elements, okay? And so we're going to start with camera distances and angles. And so they're going to present to you 5 different common camera distances, camera distances, or what we can call shots that are used in a movie. So everything from an extreme long shot to an extreme close-up and everything in between. So you'll get a brief description of these different camera distances, and then you'll get an explanation of how they're used. Okay? And then we'll look at camera angles, and so eye level, high angle, low angle, and point of view. So these are different angles that the camera can be positioned in when a scene is being shot. And once again, you'll get a description of the different camera angles, and you'll get an explanation of how these camera angles are used in movies. You can watch a little video here where they'll go over the camera shots and the camera angles that are discussed in the activity and give you some examples and give you a little bit more detail. I don't expect you to be an expert on camera angles and camera shots, okay? But I do expect you to be able to notice them and spot them when you watch a movie. Okay, that's going to be the challenge when we get to the ending of this activity. You're going to have to watch a movie and you're going to have to analyze it. And one of the things that you're going to have to look for is the way that the camera is used in the film. If we continue on, you'll see next we're going to look at lighting, and we'll talk about 2 broad categories of lighting, 2 ways that lighting can be used very generally in a movie. And so you have low-key lighting, which is lighting that allows for a lot of shadows, and maybe it's difficult to see, and maybe the characters are partially being hidden in the scene by the shadows and by the darkness, right? And then there's high-key, which is what we could call even or normal lighting, where there's very few shadows and everything appears kind of normal. As if we're looking at a scene in reality, as if we're there watching ourselves in the middle of the day. Okay? So there's a reason that a director and a cinematographer would want to use low and high key lighting in different types of scenes. And if you take a look at this video, you'll get a little explanation, and they'll use some famous TV shows and movies to kind of give you examples of both low and high key lighting. Next, we're going to take a look at sound, and we'll look at 2 different categories for sound. But what I would like to focus on is what specifically you need to be aware of is when we break down sound, we're looking at natural, real-life sound, things like dialogue and doors slamming and footsteps. That's real sound that is natural, right? That is natural to the scene. And then the second type of sound that we're going to talk about is sound that is being added into a scene, like music and sound effects. Okay, so when you're watching a movie, you're hearing the real sound in the scene. You're hearing the characters talk, and you're hearing their footsteps. But then you're also going to hear music and sound effects that have been weaved into the scene as well too. And so once again, we'll have a video here that will break down the basic elements of sound in film. Next, we've got a few additional film elements, things like visual effects, the actors' performances. Of course, acting is very important in a movie, right? The script, so Oftentimes you'll hear people say that the most important thing in a movie is the script. If the story is well written, then the movie can be good. If the story is not well written, then the movie is probably not going to be good. So the script or the story itself is very important. And then the use of story elements. So we've talked about story elements a couple of activities ago. And so the use of setting and conflict and character development. These are all, of course, parts of film as well, too. So these are additional film elements that I'd like you to pay attention to when you watch a movie. Speaking of which, when we get down to the consolidation, you're going to be asked to choose a film to watch. You can choose pretty much any film that interests you, but it needs to be one that you're going to be able to write a pretty lengthy film analysis of. So you want to choose a film that you're interested in and that you feel you can write in detail about. It can be a comedy, it can be a horror, it can be a thriller, it can be a romance. The genre doesn't matter to me, but it does have to have story elements. It has to have character and plot and setting. Has to have conflict. A documentary will not work. You probably have to choose a fictional film. Maybe that fictional film is based on real life or based on a true story, but it's still being portrayed by actors. Okay, so you need a fictional film. It doesn't have to be a Hollywood film, but just about any Hollywood film would work. Okay, so even if you've seen the film recently, I don't want you choosing a film that you know really well just because you think, well, I don't have to watch it again. I already know it. I can write my film analysis without watching it. You're going to have to watch the film again. So either choose a film that you've already seen that you want to watch again, or choose a new film that you haven't seen yet that you're interested to watch, because you're going to have to watch the movie with fresh eyes in order to do this film analysis. There are things you're going to be asked to look for that you probably never bothered to look for before. Okay. What I would suggest is if you have Netflix or if you have any streaming services, of course you're going to have lots of choices, hundreds of choices of movies. So these are just 10 very popular Hollywood films over the last 30 years or so that all happen to be free on Netflix and on some other streaming services right now. So if you want to take a look at one of these 10 movies, be my guest. You don't have to choose one of these 10. They're just to get you thinking. And if you're having trouble picking a movie, maybe one of these will grab your attention. Okay. To be honest with you, you don't have to watch a Hollywood movie. You don't have to watch a movie that's even in English. If you are familiar with Bollywood movies, or if you want to watch a movie that is in Arabic or in Japanese or in German or French, it doesn't really matter. As long as you write your film analysis in English, you can use any film that grabs your interest. Okay, again, with the exception that it has to have story elements, so it should be a fictional story, not a documentary. Okay. I've had students do cartoons before. You can use a cartoon or an animated film. It might be a little more difficult when you look at what I'm asking you to do, but it is possible if you want to do an animated film. Okay. So now once you've chosen your film, what I'm going to ask you to do is to download this film analysis organizer. And this is a Microsoft Word document. If you have trouble downloading and opening it, send me an email and I will send it to you in another form. I can send it to you as a Google Doc or another way. But when you open it, it's probably going to take a minute here to open. Come on. When you open it, this is what you'll see. And so this is our film analysis organizer. And you'll see the first side of the page here is going to go over the film elements that we just talked about on the content page here. So camera distances, camera angles, lighting, music, sound effects, visual effects, actors' performances, the script and dialogue, and story elements like character development, setting, and conflict. So I'm going to ask you to come up with an example or two of each one of these if you can. Maybe there is no, say, visual effects in the film that you could spot, and that's fine. Technically, you don't have to find an example for every single one of these film elements, but try to come up with as many examples as you can. Okay, it'll be helpful later. Okay, this is going to be essentially your rough work for the film analysis that you're going to write. So if you have examples already ready here, it'll make it easier when you get to the true assignment. Once you jot down an example or two here, give an opinion in this column. So if you give an example of a long shot that was used or a close-up that was used, give your opinion. How did you think this helped or hurt the telling of the story? So you want to start having an opinion about the music and the sound effects and the actors' performances and the lighting in the film, because you're going to have to share your opinion with me, on many different aspects of the film in your film analysis. The second page over here is going to ask about some familiar topics that we've covered in Unit 2. So I'm going to ask you to identify the film's genre. And so you can go back to Unit 2, Activity 1, and you can look at the genres again. I'd like you to fully explain why the film fits within that genre and provide specific examples from the film that show that it fits in that genre. Number 2, I'd like you to identify 2 character archetypes that are used in the film. If you need to go back to Unit 2, Activity 1 again to remind yourself of the different character archetypes, please do. But you should be able to find at least 2 archetypes and be able to explain them in your film. Part C, literary lenses, which is what we looked at in our previous activity. I'd like you to use one of the literary lenses in Unit 2, Activity 3 to analyze your film. So use specific details from the film as supporting examples. So you can use the reader response lens, the gender lens, the biographical, historical lens, or the psychological lens, whichever one you're most interested in. If you go back to Unit 2, Activity 3, you can look at the questions that you can ask yourself when you're applying each one of those lenses, and you can take those questions and provide answers, and that can be your answer to this question. Part D, I'm asking for your overall opinion. What is your overall opinion of the film? Did you enjoy it? Why or why not? Fully explain. Do you think other people would enjoy it? That's a telltale sign of whether the film is good or not, if you think other people would enjoy it. But ultimately, you're going to have to give me your personal opinion on the film you watched. So this will be an important question. So once you've put together your answers for the film analysis organizer here, you're ready to move on to the assignment, and you're ready to turn what you jotted down as your notes in your organizer into a full-blown film analysis.